Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, Joy.
Hi, everybody. We're starting to get attendees filtering in here, and I'm going to promote people to panelists as I see them come in. If you are on the CAC, please raise your hand and I'll be sure to promote you to a panelist as well. Also, if you're with Bcyf, if you wouldn't mind raising your hand too, and I'll promote you to a panelist as well. Thanks. Hi, everybody. For those of you just joining, if you are a member of the CAC, would you please raise your hand and I will promote you to a panelist. Thanks. Good evening, everybody. If you're just joining us and you're a CAC member, please raise your hand so I can promote you to be a panelist. Thanks. I'm sorry to repeat myself for those of you who've been on earlier, but if you are a CAC member, please raise your hand so I can promote you to be a panelist. Thank you. All right, if you're just joining us tonight and you are a CAC member, please raise your hand and I will promote you to be a panelist.
I think we're good to go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thumbs up, yes, no, folks can hear me?
I think we can get started, Brett. Can you hear me, Brett?
We need a few
Yes.
minutes?
Okay, yeah, no, I think perhaps since we should get started since our start time was at 6, and I think Marta's going to kick it off.
Okay, wasn't sure if we were still waiting on either CAC members or anyone. Okay, so do a quick round of introductions. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining. My name is Marta Rivera. I'm the interim commissioner of the Boston Centers for Youth and Families. And I will quickly pass it on to my, I can't see everyone on my team, but do a quick pass off to folks who are here from BCYF. First person I can see is Sandy Holden.
Hello, Sandy Holden. I'm the Public Information Manager at Boston Centers for Youth and Families. And I see Pat McDonough on the call.
Hi, everyone. Yes, good evening. I'm Pat McDonough. I'm the BCYF Facilities Manager, and I'll pass it off to Dan Monahan.
Good evening, everybody. Dan Monahan here, Regional Operations Manager for Boston Centers for Youth and Families. And I'll pass it off to Joy DePina.
Hi, Joy DePina here from Marshall Community Center in Dorchester. Hector Alvarez.
Looks like Hector might be having trouble with his audio there.
I
Can you hear
think, yeah.
I'm sorry. Hector
I
Alvarez.
wasn't sure if it was my connection or anyone else's connection.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'll try it again.
Good, Hector.
Yeah, Hector Alvarez, Administrative Coordinator for the Harlan Community Center, located in Dorchester. Unfortunately, I can't see who's on the call, so I'll pass it on to another BCYF co-worker of mine.
I think everyone is suffering from bad connection. I'll spare us the introductions and maybe we could just do the, and I apologize to everyone else, but is it just me or are you guys getting everyone else's connections has been spotty?
For me, it's been spotty. That's Hector.
I can,
Okay.
yeah, mine, Martha. It's Pat. Mine is fine. I can hear everybody.
Okay, Al, so can I pass it to you and your team?
Hi, yes, was that,
Carrie?
I'm Alistair Lux with the Public Facility Department, and I'm joined with a few of my colleagues from the Public Facilities Department tonight. Carrie Griffin is here. She's our director, along with Niall Murphy, our Chief of Staff, and our Assistant Director for Design, Evan Brickman, I believe, is on the call as well. So we're all happy to be here. And we're the department that's managing this study on behalf of BCYF. So we're serving as a coordinator for the consultants and the data that's being gathered as part of this study. Thank you.
And I think I'm last on that list. My name is Brett Benson. I'm a principal at UTL. We are architects and urban planners in charge of documenting and running the study. And I'll pass it back to you, Marta, and you can just let me know when you want to advance the slides.
Sorry, I'm going to go quickly through the slides. My connection's spotty, then it could just be me. So just wanted to, we had in previous community meetings, and we'll continue to remind folks of the goals of the study. Essentially, we want to build community center facilities, BCYF community centers. And through this siting study, we want to be able to establish the types of uses and activities that we would have in the community center. And we want to identify potential sites for the community centers. And then through this process, we also want to make sure that there is we want to do what's called a test fit, or a three-dimensional fit, to ensure that the facility, the sites are adequate for the size and for the spaces that we're looking to have in the community center. You can advance. So these are sites that we currently have in the Dorchester area, BCYF facilities. And as you can see, we are essentially in BPS buildings. So these are what we call school-based sites. We also have standalone sites, but we don't have currently any standalone sites in Dorchester. So all of our BCYF or community center sites are in school buildings, and essentially we share space or occupy space within school buildings, which make it challenging in terms of hours and again, space. And advance to the next one. Brett, you can advance to the next one.
I think this is, Marta, this was one of the slides that I'm happy to explain a little bit, if that's okay.
Okay, that was the last one. Okay, good.
Okay. But before I get started on this, I also just wanted to ask if there was any elected officials joining us tonight. I know Councilor Worrell's office has been following along, and if anybody is here, would feel free to raise your hand or drop something in the chat or take yourself off mute and introduce yourself. We'd love to hear from you. If not, I'll just go ahead and describe this slide a little bit. This is our atypical project schedule that should give everybody a little bit of context as to where we are in terms of the overall process of building a new community center in Dorchester. So we're at the very, very beginning of the process. So that's one of the reasons why you'll notice that we're taking a very broad-based approach, and we're really starting it at the very beginning of the process. So we want to get sort of the foundation of the study correct, so that we have the correct information to build off of during the budgeting, the land acquisition if necessary, and then into the design and the construction. So this is a long-term process. The very soonest it would take place would be about 4 years after the completion of the study to the completion of construction, but it could easily take longer, just depending on a lot of different particulars along the way. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, Brett, if you could just back up. In addition to the community input that's we have the opportunity to gather during this study, there'll be additional opportunities during the design process as well. So that's an important point I wanted to make in that, not only are we accepting community input during the study, we're going to be doing it throughout the process, and there'll be many more opportunities for everybody to have a voice in the process. Thank you. Next slide. And then this is just a little bit of a closer look at our study schedule in particular. So we started in fall of last year. This is our third community meeting here in February. And at our first two community meetings, we kind of did introduce the project and try to get a sense of the things, the goals, and that were important to the community, and talked a little bit about the goals that are important to BCYF. And then at our second meeting, we talked a little bit more specifically about what types of programs both BCYF and the community would like to see in a new community center. And at this meeting, we're going to be talking a little bit about test fits on a few of the sites that we've initially identified. And at the next phase, we'll get a little deeper into kind of a concept level design. But we're also along the way have been hoping to gather feedback on both the program and the sites from the community. So we'll be following up at our next meeting as well with some of the information that you all have been providing to us. And then we hope to issue a final report and conclude our study in May of 2020. So a few months from now. And with that, I think Brett from UTL is going to take us through the following slides.
Thanks so much, Alistair. Thanks everybody for spending your evening with us tonight. I'll try to be brief. I know we're trying to wrap up by 7 p.m. So I wanted to really briefly review some of the BCYF program information that we presented at the last community meeting. This is a list of programs that happen inside BCYF centers across the city, arranged from the most common at the top to the least common at the bottom. These programs can be grouped into 4 broad categories: community and education, arts, fitness and sports, and outdoor spaces. And in our first community meeting, we pulled the CAC members live by Zoom to help us prioritize the types of uses and activities in a Dorchester community center. Their survey has remained on BCYF's website since October, and we've received 295 responses from all over Dorchester, including 70 more since our last community meeting in December. So I thank all of you for publicizing and pushing this out to all of your neighbors for the great responses that we've been getting. The latest results of the survey really reinforce the feedback that we've received back in December, with the priorities being the same in each category. And that's giving us confidence that the ideal building program that we presented in December is reflective of the community's needs. There is a part of the survey where people can fill in other ideas about activities in the community centers. Some of these are listed here, and I want to encourage everyone to keep filling in the survey so we can get as many ideas as possible. This size and adjacency of each program or use is shown on the drawing here. And it's really shown as a kind of set of 3D Lego blocks, each grouped into categories of spaces that we reviewed earlier. And this gives us a total building size of approximately 57,000 square feet, with an ideal minimum lot size of 47,000 square feet. And this ideal program is what we have used in testing different sites around Dorchester for a new community center. I also wanted to mention that we have an additional tool online to help us select specific sites in Dorchester. This tool allows you to drop pins on a map and add a text description for where you would like to see a new community center. And we've received some good responses so far, and we encourage you to share this with your neighbors and friends so we get as much community input as possible. And that brings us to the heart of tonight's presentation, which is to show test fits on 5 sites in Dorchester. And I want to first start with a definition, which is that a test fit is a 3-dimensional test of the community center uses and activities on a particular site, and follow that up with an important disclaimer. First, this is a test and only a test. It's not an actual design or proposal for a site. At this stage, we're really simply arranging Lego blocks on a site to see how things could fit together. We started with lots that are owned by the city of Boston and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And the goal of these tests is to show how different sites impact the arrangement of uses and activities. You'll see that some are low and spread out while others are tall and dense. We're still cataloging sites, including privately owned sites, and we're open to recommendations from the community. We do not intend to rank or recommend particular sites in this study. That will be left to future review once the study is complete. So on this map, you can see the inventory of sites that we've gathered so far. The green color pins are publicly owned, either City of Boston or Massachusetts. The red pins are privately owned. We're not identifying the details of these sites so far, since the city has not had the opportunity to engage with any private landowners. And this map shows that we've cast a very wide net all across Dorchester to identify sites that would be big enough to support a community center. The 5 sites we're going to show today are all publicly owned, 3 by the city, 2 by the state. These sites all benefit from being located near existing public services, be it schools or parks, libraries, or public transit. The first site is the Frederick Middle School Playground, also called the Brunswick King Play Area. It's located next to the Children's Park on Intervale Street and a block from Columbia Road. The footprint of the building would take up the west end of the park, and we keep the major access pathways to the park intact. Looking at this in 3 dimensions, the entrance to the community center could be located along Normandy Street. The building could have strong connections to the existing children's park along Intervale. And because this end of the park slopes down to Normandy, the building shape could step up to follow the contour of the hill. On the lower level, the entrance at Normandy would provide easy access to community spaces, while the pool can be partially buried in the hill to limit the impact of the building height on the neighboring houses. On the upper level, the program spaces, including the teen center, youth rooms, and senior center, would be level with the upper slope of the park. The gym would be on the highest level, stepped away from the street and the children's park to reduce its impact. And we know that this will require very careful acoustic considerations to prevent the sounds of bouncy basketballs from impacting the community spaces below. This is an arrangement that happens in quite a few BCYF centers around the city right now. And here's another look at it in 3 dimensions. The next site we're looking at is 4048 Geneva Avenue, across the street from the Burke High School, the Grove Hall Library, and the current Grove Hall Senior Center. The lot is a little undersized compared to the ideal at 35,000 square feet. It benefits from close proximity to the school and the library, but does not have an adjacent athletic field. Here's a look at it in 3 dimensions. Given the size of the lot, it would be built tight to the sidewalks with the entrance on Geneva Avenue across from the library entrance. The entrance on Geneva provides convenient access to the community room, as well as the senior center and youth classroom. The gym, pool, and fitness are located on the ground floor, are built up along the industrial buildings that are next door. On the second floor, the remaining arts and education spaces are located along the center corridor. And here it is in 3 dimensions. Moving to Fields Corner, we tested a slice of town field, initially called Doherty Gibson Playground. To fit the community center, the south baseball field will need to rotate slightly. And historically, Geneva Avenue cut through town field, and we're expecting to find some underground utilities in this area. So we're keeping the building set back from that historic alignment. Overall, this site allows the building to be more spread out and predominantly a single level building. The entrance would be located facing Dorchester Avenue, forming an entry plaza with the building that ADSL occupies. And the community room would be located near the entrance, and the classroom spaces would overlook the baseball field and a new green space that is enclosed by the community center. The upper level would house the art space and would step back from the new green space. And here it is again in 3 dimensions. Next, we move further south in Dorchester to Victory Road Park, also known as Mcmurrell Playground, across from the Leahy-Halloran Community Center. The site is on the edge of the predicted floodplain, taking into account sea level rise by 2070. So there needs to be careful additional study about access to the community center, taking into account climate change. To make room for the community center, 1 baseball field needs to shift to the south and rotate, and a new play space can be built next to the community center. The outdoor basketball court would be replaced by the indoor court in the new center. And there are two houses at the corner of the site, and we'll want to respect that by setting the building back. The community spaces, senior center and teen center can be located on the ground floor. While on the second floor, the arts, makerspace, and tech lab can be located near an upper floor roof deck. The taller gym and pool situated along the red line tracks will help serve as a noise buffer for the community. And again, in 3 dimensions. And finally, in South Dorchester, we take a look at the Garvey Playground Divine Rink site. The site is located between Morrissey Boulevard and Neponset Avenue. The footprint of the new building would sit above the existing parking lot next to the rink. And we're imagining that the new building will be elevated on piers to allow parking underneath, and additional parking may need to be developed on the north of the rink. The building is set back from the newly renovated Garvey Playground and does not impact the dog park. The site is also located in the 2070 sea level rise floodplain, and the majority of the building, other than the entrance, is raised above the flood level. At 36,000 square feet, the site is small and requires a denser and taller building than the other sites, so it's a good contrast to the test fits we showed earlier. The entrance would be located at ground level with the community rooms elevated to be well out of the floodplain. The majority of the program would be raised 1 level above the parking, with the senior center, teen center, and pool located at this level. And located another level above would be the arts, makerspace, tech lab, and fitness studio. And on the highest level, the youth spaces and gym with access to an outdoor roof deck. And here it is in 3 dimensions. We also wanted to briefly show some additional test sites that have been mentioned in previous meetings. The first is to a playground, which we did not test fit for this meeting. It's landlocked in that it does not have much street frontage, and it has quite a few residential neighbors to contend with. The basketball courts at Ronan Park were also mentioned, but have a drawback of steep slopes and not very convenient access to major streets. And we also wanted to mention one private site as an example of the types of private sites we have been looking at. This is located next to the BPS Campbell Resource Center off of Dorchester Avenue. It's a vacant industrial building, and the site area is just about the right size for the program we have developed. And with that, we want to say thank you for your attention and turn it over to the CAC members to have any comments. And if you would raise your hand when you have a comment, you should be able to unmute yourself after I give you permission. So please raise your hand if you have a comment. Thanks so much for your attention. I'll also mention that you can put comments in the chat and we will read those out loud if you don't feel comfortable putting yourself in front of the public meeting.
There was, Brett, there was one comment from Mike Kozu during the presentation, and I was wondering if you could just clarify what the square footage was for the site at 4448 Geneva Ave.
Sure, I'll try and scroll us backwards. Sorry if I'm making anybody dizzy. I think I must have misspoken when I was giving the presentation. It's around 43,000 square feet.
Okay, thank you.
Looks like Linda Freeman is raising a hand, so I'll allow you to ask your question. Go ahead, Linda.
The question is, presently the senior center is over kind of like connected to the Burke and to the library, though it has a separate entrance. It's not very big, it's really small. My question is, if you move the senior center over to 40 to 48 Geneva Ave, I'm just wondering what's going to happen to that the senior community room, that small, really small one, just out of curiosity. I realize that the seniors need more space.
Hi, Brett, this is Pat. Yeah, I can take that, Linda. We're really not at that point where we would make that decision. But I do know, I do agree with it's very small. The entire space is 1,380 square feet, just under 1,400 square feet. That includes the front office area. So it is a small community room. I would tend to think that hopefully it would stay at some, either, if we had a community center across the street, it would maybe, be a conference room for the library or be a conference room for the community, or I mean, if we had enough staffing, we could maybe still staff it, but I'm not, at this point, we wouldn't be at a point where we would know what to do. Because if we move the senior center over to a new community center across the street, we probably wouldn't be able to staff both. But I agree, it is too small for the senior center, for a senior center.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There is one question in the Q&A. I'm not sure if everybody can see this. Marta, you might want to pick this up, or Pat, I'll read it out loud. This is a BC MSW student just listening in. What will be the benefits of having a new building solely dedicated to being a community center? Is it just having more flexibility, more space?
Yeah, I can start off. It's Pat. The differences between a BCYF community center and a Boston Public School versus a BCYF standalone center is that in a Boston Public School, we really can't operate or run programming during the school day. So that's about 9, well, it's actually almost 10 months of the year that we have to not really stop programming until 1, 2 in the afternoon. So its flexibility is absolutely number one, because we run programs from about 1 to 9 or 2 to 10, 2 to 9:30 p.m. versus running programs like at, say, the Tobin Community Center or at Vine Street, where we start, or even Curtis. I can give you Curtis Hall as a perfect example. We start doing lap swim for lap swimmers at 6 in the morning, and we operate till 9 o'clock at night, Mondays to Fridays. Then we operate on Saturdays also. The biggest thing is more hours, more programming, more space. Many of the school buildings, we just don't have that much space at that. We'll have shared spaces such as gyms, pools, and sometimes we have cafeterias or auditoriums or cafetoriums. A lot of schools have, but we don't have much dedicated space. We may have some offices and maybe a small community room. A standalone building, we would hope, would have all those amenities and also be available for seniors during the morning times, younger children during the afternoons, teenagers at night, and people of all ages, for as many hours. It's the difference of about maybe 40 hours to about 70 to 70 hours or 70 plus hours a week of operating and programming.
Joy, it looks like you had your hand raised.
Yes, just a quick question. Did you guys look at like population density in relation to the sites that you guys picked?
We did do some demographic research. I think it's actually posted on BCYF's website as well. In this stage, we've really tried to cast a very wide net all across Dorchester to find sites. Some of the neighborhoods are more challenged than others in terms of finding a site that's big enough to accommodate a center. And some of them, some of the sub neighborhoods of Dorchester have more publicly owned sites, and others have more privately owned sites in terms of appropriately sized sites for a new center. So again, if anybody has any questions, feel free to raise your hand and I can let you unmute, or if you'd rather put it in the Q&A, please go ahead. Linda, it looks like you have your hand raised.
Yeah, one other question. Are any of these sites, when they come up, will they be solar panel use on the rooftop?
I'll answer that. So we have a mandate to, anything new in the city should be, try to meet the net zero goals. So solar would be an option, possibly maybe geothermal. So that's in all of our designing.
Cool, just wondering. Thank you.
Brett, can you make Marta a panelist so she can answer anything that pops up that she has the
Hey.
answer to?
Thanks, Andy. They just added me. Thank you.
Oh, good.
Sorry, Marta. So there's a question in the Q&A about how many people have logged into the meeting. We have about 40 people logged on tonight.
There's a question in the chat, Brett, that I can try to answer from somebody with the initials PM. It says, out of the 5 proposed sites, is there one site that seems most feasible to the team? Cost, shovel-ready, access, etc. And we're still a little too early to make that determination. You know, I think part of the reason why we chose to start with the 5 sites that we're showing tonight is they do all have a benefit of already being either city owned or owned by the state. So that would, in the case of all of them really would, you know, eliminate any land acquisition costs. So that's a cost benefit there, but it's really too early to tell about you know, total construction costs or those kind of things. We're going to dive a little deeper into that a little bit later in this study. And as Brett mentioned earlier on, our goal in the study is not to so much rank the sites or to identify one site that we're going to proceed with. We hope to present a clear sense of the benefits and difficulties of each site, but really, I think what we hope is that we'll kind of conclude our study with, you know, a number of sites that have some clear advantages, but also have a clear sense of what the challenges of each of these will be. So I hope that kind of answers your question to some degree.
And Alistair, thank you. I'll just add to that, you know, we're going to put this together, the complete study that everyone will have access to, and not so much with recommendations, but with pros and cons. So if you have something that is near a T station, if you have something that has nice adjacencies to multiple neighborhoods, something that is, you know, there's parking available, there's, you know, all those things. It's not heavy residential. All those things will go in somewhat pros and cons columns, and then this will be provided to, you know, everyone, the community, the mayor's office, the budget office, everyone. So, but it's not really making a recommendation. It's just looking at what provides the best opportunities and connects neighborhoods.
And we also had a question. Somebody was asking for the website where community members can take the survey as well as the site mapping tool. So somebody will throw that in the chat shortly.
I did. I put it in there.
Oh, great. Thank you, Sandy.
Looks like Lewis had a question. How much time will be dedicated to youth programs if I'm understanding the question correctly, we will have space dedicated to youth programs in the community center. So programming in those spaces could happen at any time that the community center is open. In contrast, as Pat was mentioning, to the sites that are shared with schools right now, where there has to be time negotiated between BPS and BCYF. I hope that answers the question. And then Mike Joyce, you had a question. Can you describe once again the difference between the first 5 sites versus the last 4 options? These first 5 sites we chose largely to cast a wide net across Dorchester geographically. We started with the publicly owned sites just because the city hasn't engaged with any private landowners yet. It also has, they all have the benefit of additional public services nearby, as I had mentioned, public transit or libraries or schools. Many of them have athletic fields that are right next door too, which was one feature that was identified in our programming meeting last time. Keitha, if it is adjacent to a school, there will be less time for programming year round. I don't think so. No. Go ahead, Pat.
No, Brett, that's
Yeah,
true.
I don't,
No, Martha, go ahead, Martha. Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, yeah, I don't see why, how the school, being adjacent to the school will dictate the programming. You know, Pat was speaking, talked earlier about the standalone sites. The benefit of having the standalone is that we can program it sun up to sundown, you know, regardless of the school, because we can have other activities, whether it's for adults or seniors, even during the, you know, school hours. I'm not sure if that's what the person is referring to. But again, I do want to remind folks that it's very early in the process. The site study phase, again, is the first step, that we still have the design process after this, and that when we're talking about the specifics about programming, there was a question, someone asked about sort of the amount of time allocated to youth programming or youth activities. Again, too early to tell very specifically, but this is, you know, the purpose of having the center is to have a good range of activities for youth, and we want to be able to meet those needs. But to get specific, it's too early, because we are just trying to identify the locations.
There's a Q&A question, Marta, about will it be more like a drop-in center, or will community members need to sign up and pay a fee?
I think actually, but as I was just saying, it's too early to talk about the programmatic, you know, specifics of the programs. I would think if it's anything like, you know, our current standalones, it would be a combination of both. We'd have licensed programs, EEC after school programs, ongoing programming, as well as drop-in.
Lewis, you had a question. What role does the community play in programming? You have a very strong role. So the last meeting was focused on programming. We have the survey that is up on the BCYF website that asks for input on different types of programs to rank priorities and to fill in the blanks on anything that we might have been missing in our initial thoughts about programming. We would love to hear your comments either directly tonight or through the survey or through email form. We're very open to feedback. As Marta said, we're very early in the process, so it's very easy to incorporate feedback at this point in the process and encourage in any form that you're comfortable with.
And also want to just say hello to Councilor Worrell. It looks like he may have just joined the meeting.
Counselor, if you want to raise your hand, I can promote you to a panelist if you want to make any comments.
I want to stress, and I know it was mentioned earlier, the survey, we've said it several times and the link was shared. But as we're talking about, programming and programs that will be in this center or the centers, informing the types, again, the types of spaces, because we do need to know the types of spaces that we're creating. Even if we're not talking about the specifics of the programs, we need to know what types of programs you want to have in order to create the adequate or the proper spaces for the programs. So getting that survey out to as many people as possible to inform that, we really need your help doing that. I think if you didn't see it earlier, we have was close to not nearly 300 responses. I think that one might have been as of last week. In a community as large as a neighborhood as large as Dorchester, we want to make sure that we're getting at least 1,000. So we really want to encourage you to push it out to your friends, your family, your networks to get as many of those responses and as much feedback on the types of spaces and programs that folks want to see in the neighborhood. I want to thank you in advance for that.
Looks like there's another question, Brett. So to what extent does design and size determine programming and access? And Brett, I'll let you speak to this, but it's really the programming that determines the size and the design.
Yep, that's exactly right, Carrie. Thanks for that. That's really the right way to go at it. Is we try and determine the program, the types of uses and activities that a community center needs and wants to have, especially something site specific here in Dorchester. And then the design will follow that. And so really that's the goal of this study, is to determine what that program is. And as Marta said, that survey is a great tool to help us solicit feedback from the community. And once again, everybody, feel free to raise your hand, post a comment in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'll address it that way. Diane, you should be able to unmute and go ahead and make your comment.
It looks like Diane Bell has her hand raised.
Yes, I wanted to know when it comes to the teaching part of, will you have any programs in that's going to teach the kids? And like if you say, like if you had a class in there with sewing, would you hire somebody in there to teach them how to sew, or are they going to be on their own? Or that's what I'm curious about also. Hello.
Hi, yes,
Hi,
this is
can you hear
Pat.
me? Oh.
Yes, I know what you're asking. You're asking about more specific programs. We're not at the point where we have that, but we do have programming at other sites. I think that's what the commissioner was saying, what Marcia was saying before, is that when in terms of like free memberships versus paid membership stuff, if you have a sewing class, usually we would have someone who actually runs a class like that as a professional person, and they would teach people how to sew or teach people how to cook or teach people how to do different things like that. And that would probably be a class that may have a small fee that you have to be charged for people to take that class, versus a class that would just be like going and having someone come in to use the gym or use a pool or something like that, which may be just a membership fee. It would probably be an add-on. But we do have programming around the city that has those different programs in them. So
Would
yes,
it
that,
be- I'm sorry, go ahead.
it's okay. We have those programs around the city that we have different programs where we have sewing classes or cooking classes or arts classes, painting, things like that in different community centers. It just goes site to site. There's no specific across the board that has one particular program. So it would be part of the process of filling out the surveys, and then we would, get to the point where we would talk about programming.
Would it be for let me see, how would I say that? For low income people also?
Oh, yes. Yeah, it would be open to all people. I mean, we work with people in terms of those type of situations. Yes.
So they wouldn't be charged a whole lot.
No, we charge a
That's what I
nominal
was
fee.
wondering.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. It's absolutely, if anything, we usually charge a nominal fee, and the nominal fee usually just covers the person teaching the class. There's no extra cost, or, the cost of the yarn or the sewing, the sewing equipment, things like that. For instance, we don't do it to, it would be a zero sum base sum. Wouldn't be to make anything off of it. So it would all go right back into the class itself.
Yeah,
What is it?
Pat, I might add, we also have a lot of funding and grants that take care of some of that, so I'll cut to the chase. We've never told nobody no because of any financial situation. There's always a way. We don't do that.
Okay, all right. What are the ages also that you allow, up to what age?
6 and up, all the way.
Mhm.
And there's some other specialized programs that could be 4 or 5, but in general, we're 6 years old and up.
Mhm. Okay. And then you would have parents make out applications for their children, or drop them off, or make sure that, or either let them, or the parents would stay there with them until the class is finished.
A lot of times parents don't stay. In some cases they do, but there is an application process because we want to make sure we have any bit of information we can have the child's for a lot of different reasons, whether it's allergies or telephone emergency numbers, etc.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Welcome.
Joy, you had your hand raised. Did you want to add?
Yes, no, I just wanted to help to answer some of Diane's questions by giving some examples of the things we do here at the Marshall that might put it more into perspective. So here we do serve more school age, middle school and high school students. And Diane, for example, we have a partnership with the Boston Ballet, and they teach ballet classes twice a week. That cost is, part that the parents would be responsible for, we apply for a grant and get that paid. So we provide free ballet classes to kids. So as Pat and Dan was saying, we do as much as we can to make sure there is zero to very minimal cost that goes to participants. And every time there's a program, to answer your previous question, there is always an instructor, either someone that is hired by BCYF through a grant to teach that class, or one of our own staff would be the one there. So there's always a responsible adult there. So no one is just, learning how to sew without an instructor or anything like that.
Okay, thank you.
There was also, I think, a follow-up question from Lewis in the chat. Can a person that seeks to volunteer time be able to teach dance or sewing or fitness and so on?
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's pretty good. All right.
Yeah, we have volunteers throughout our network. Yeah, so we just, we query, the volunteers. So that's certainly an option.
And there was also a question earlier in the chat. Somebody was asking about what the process will be for looking into any privately held sites. And that's just a little bit more complicated for us, just because there's likely to be a acquisition cost, but also before we sort of present any of the privately held sites, we want to truly make sure, do some extra vetting and truly make sure they're viable sites and would present a clear benefit. So that's why we haven't done that tonight. But if we investigate further and determine that there are some privately held sites that would present some clear benefits, we will likely show those at a subsequent meeting.
Alistair, a couple more in the chat here.
Sure.
Is there a single site from all of these possibilities or out of all of these sites? And I think, as we said earlier in the meeting, our goal with the study is to really catalog a number of sites and present those for evaluation in the future, as Carrie said, by the mayor and the city council and so on.
That's right. Thank you, Brett. And then I see the most recent question in the chat is, how many standalone centers are you looking to build in Dorchester? And we're trying to identify enough sites so that multiple centers could be built, and our study's not really focusing in on a particular number. We hope to identify many sites, and then it will be up to a later decision to be made exactly how many are built and when. But we hope to have a good list of many viable sites, so there won't be a shortage of sites on our list.
Mike Joyce, go ahead. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Great, thanks. Two-part question. So all 9 sites presented tonight are either publicly or state-owned, so city or state-owned sites. And if there are multiple sites built in Dorchester, do you see them replacing any of the existing BCYF sites?
That's a good question, and I think it's too early to tell. I think
There's
you say
also
you have multiple. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to
multiple
say there's
questions.
also a funding source question in the chat. What will be the funding source for the center?
To build it or to operate it?
Good question.
Kind of all comes out of the same pot of money, right?
Well, it's Pat Martin. Yeah, for the building part of it, actually, it comes out of capital funding, which is actually stuff that the city goes every year to Wall Street and get bonded money for the capital project money, which is separate from the city's operating money. So it would be a little bit different to build it. We would use capital money, and to operate it, we would use operating money. But I mean, the funding would be from the city. It would be, I wouldn't believe, unless, someone has a major donation to make.
Endowment or something.
An endowment or a major donation, yeah. It would be through city funding, through government funding. For both. I mean, it's just different types. I mean, different processes, but it's all through government funding.
Dan Monahan, you had your hand raised.
I think that was by accident. Sorry there, Fred.
Oh, nope, no problem. All right, so we are approaching 7 p.m. I want to give everybody an opportunity to make any last comments or ask any questions, but also be very respectful of everybody's time tonight. We definitely appreciate you spending an hour with us tonight. And again, there are many ways to provide feedback to us, either through BCYF website, using the survey. Please use our mapping tool to identify sites that you might have your eye on, or feel free to email any of us or talk to it directly any of your local BCYF staff to provide feedback.
Okay, well, thank you, Brett, and thank you to everyone who participated tonight. And please watch out for our next announcement for our next community meeting, which we hope to hold sometime in April. And again, thanks for attending.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Night.
Thank you, everyone.
you.
Good evening.
Bye.
Thank you.